Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Good morning, good, beautiful, well, cloud-filled, but beautiful morning here in the Middle East, here in the heart of Eretz Israel. My name is Andrea Simintov, and you are listening to Pull Up a Chair on Israel News Talk Radio in Jerusalem. We're getting ready. It's the final countdown, getting ready to Passover. A Passover, or as we're going to call it for the rest of the show, we're getting ready for Pesach, the holiday that acknowledges our redemption, our freedom from bondage, and so much more. We're going to parse it, we're going to analyze it, and we're going to talk about what it means to us today. Is it indeed relevant? So listen, I want to say good night, good morning to my friends in the U.S. Hi, Canada. Oh, is it so late there? Boker Tov, Eretz Israel. We're listening in today from the UK. France is with us this morning. Norway, Australia. So nice to always see you here, Australia. Chile, and wow, a warm, heartfelt welcome to Lebanon. If the show sounds a little frantic today, after I'm done, I have to pack. Please, God, I'm getting on a plane tonight. As we are winding our way out of the year of Corona, we hope, I will be flying to North America tonight, several stops, and hopefully landing in Washington, D.C. early tomorrow morning to spend the next few weeks visiting my elderly mother, siblings, friends, and indeed taking a walk or six on the boardwalk. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about food, but we don't want to waste our time. And we're also going to talk not about politics. Don't ask me today who the prime minister is, because they're still hashing it out. We've had our fourth election, and you know what, everybody? If it weren't so sad, it would be very, very funny. We're living in the midst of a comedy routine, so we're going to get on to much more uncomplicated subjects like Pesach. My name is Andrea Simintov, and guess what? I'll see you on the other side.
How did a nice Jewish girl from Delaware end up living in Israel? Shalom, I'm Natalie Sapinski. Join me on my show, Returning Home. Meet different people who have moved to Israel. Hear their personal stories, their highs, their lows, and everything in between. Each week, we talk to experts on immigration and the process of moving to Israel. Listen to Returning Home every Thursday, only on Israel News Talk Radio.
And we're back. Andrea Simintov on Pull Up a Chair on Israel News Talk Radio.com. If you are indeed listening live this morning, go into the chat room, press that little red button. It says chat room open, and let me know that you're there. We're going to get the business out of the way first. Also, if anything on this show today piques your interest, you want to challenge something, you want to know more, you'd like to ask me where my sources are, where they come from, write to me, Andrea at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I will get back to you b'simcha, happily. If you have anything nasty to say, stay out of the chat room. We don't do nasty on this show, as many of the participants will tell you. They tell anybody who gets a little bit, what's the word, snarky? Is that the word that they use? Yeah, don't do it. Wrong show. All right, so it's amazing. If you were listening to the show, I think it was 2 shows ago, I actually brought my travel agent on. And it was amazing to be able to talk. We've come to this day. It was very frightening. I woke up this morning and I said to my husband, I can't believe they're actually going to let me travel. It's one thing to plan it. It's one thing to think about it. It's one thing to call up and get the tickets. But like, it's not going to really happen. We're also, remember a year ago at this time, people were getting ready for the oddest Passovers that they had celebrated in their entire lives. And for the first time, a tentative edict was actually coming down from the chief rabbis, who was telling people, do not throw out your chametz, meaning our leavened food, which we typically, if there's an open package of flour, an open package of pasta, we toss it because it's not a real monetary loss, and it really further demonstrates our faith in heaven. And suddenly the rabbis were saying, we don't know what's going to be on the other side. Do not throw away your food. And it was a very scary time, but we all imagined it would be over by Shavuos, okay? By the time that we received the Torah. Didn't happen. The summer for sure. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Chanukah did not happen. And now I'm packed. My passports are out and I'm getting ready. And I will, of course, report. Next 2-3 shows are going to be from various broom closets around the East Coast of the United States. So I'll let you know how it's going. But it is indeed amazing. We have an opportunity to make our seders great. Let's make our seders great this year. The seder, it's not, I remember growing up and hearing parents say children should be seen and not heard. Well, that is a very unpopular sentiment, both in the modern world today, where children very often are designer accoutrements, but also when it comes to Passover, it's about the kids. It's about continuity. It's about the miracle, the mind-blowing irrationality of Jewish existence today. And it's about the children. I beg, we still have, it's going to be on Motzi Shabbos. Saturday night is the first seder. Decorate the tables. If the kids are home, have them make paintings, cover the walls, even let them dress. I know one of my daughters, they come to the table dressed as the characters from the Pesach story. They come as Moshe and Miriam. Somebody dresses as Paro. It's very, very cute. They come and they walk around the table with pillowcases on their back as though they're burdened. It's all about the kids. I have another daughter. This is like so gross. She decorates the table. I cannot tell you. She puts like fake locusts in the water. I'm not joking, in the water. And she has, when we talk about the plague of Barad, hail, she suddenly starts throwing ping pong balls around the room, and our seders are alive. And this is what the children will take into their adulthood. Remember, boys and girls, the seder, the Passover seder, is not a trial to be endured, but rather it's a gift. It's a once a year gift, in some cases twice a year, 2 nights, it's a demonstrative opportunity to actually physicalize what we pray for and what we pray about all year long. So you know what? Between airport stops, send me a note, Andrea at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Hey, Andrea, I'm doing my first seder. What can I do to make it more Leibnizik? What can I do to liven it up? I'll see if I can jot you a note, okay? It may be a voice message. So happy. All right. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty stuff. Judaism. Hello, isn't that why we're here? Judaism does not view service of God or serving other people as like voluntary exercises. Judaism is actually, and again, I know that I'm going to get some flack, but we're not a menu, one from column A, one from column B. It's a series of laws, they're obligations, they're commandments. It's a system, Judaism, that requires discipline and continued commitment, that's built on the giving and accepting of gasp commands. You know, every efficient army in the world, or even a commercial enterprise in the world, is based upon a structure of commands. So, you know, the Torah uses the word tzav, to command. When a boy or a girl goes for their first posting in the Israeli army, we say they're going to their tzav rishon, their first command. And when we describe Moshe's instruction to Aaron in assuming this new role as high priest of Israel, the word is tzav. Now, Judaism allows it's kind of liberal for individual talents and creativity to be expressed. But still, there's a framework. The blessings that Jews, I love this, and I have to share this. Came across a lot of stuff. It's been a very busy Torah week here in my house. Let me take a sip of my water, by the way. Thank you for your patience. The blessings that Jews pronounce before the performance of a mitzvah, we always state that God has commanded us. We say the word vitzivano, asher kiddushano b'mitzvotav vitzivano, to perform this holy act. We bow to God's will. We remember who's in charge. And the discipline of Torah in our performance is all about ritual. You know, we live in a society today. I get a lot of this from Rabbi Beryl Wine. May he live and be well and be in good health and prosper. You know, we live in this society that we exalt the idea of being able to do things my way. I'm an individual. You know, this is my vibe. Okay, I'm marching to my own drummer. Again, individuality it's admirable. We encourage our children not to be puppets, think for themselves. But a basic framework in order for the world not to fall into chaos has to be maintained. And that framework consists of the grids of commandments, obligations that bind us to Torah and tradition. What is Pesach if not tradition? You know, our experience, boys and girls, teaches us that Judaism cannot be made meaningful by making it trendy, gimmicky. Yes, we want the children to stay awake so they can search for the afikomen, the third piece of matzah, and we'll do everything we can. We'll sing a song, we'll tie it on a back, we'll throw ping pong balls. But that does not override the obligations of the seder or as an example, Shabbos. Shabbos is never enhanced or made more meaningful through condoning, violating the commandments. You know, I need to listen to classical music on Shabbos because it makes my Shabbos more meaningful. No, it makes it Shabbos in the whole world. And by the way, you're listening to classical music. It is not Shabbos Kodesh. This Shabbos is the one that precedes the holiday of Pesach. It's called, in fact, Shabbat Hagadol, the great Shabbat. In reality, every Shabbos is great. There's no other concept in Judaism that carries with it so many commandments, so many obligations. That's Shabbos. So many do's and don'ts, more don'ts than do's. But a lot of time, people try to improve the Shabbos. But you know what? It's self-defeating. And it doesn't last the test of time. Shabbos is great because it embodies the Jewish commandments of discipline. And those who indeed follow the strictures of Shabbos, they can taste the delight of the day. A lot of us believe that Shabbos, in fact, is a foretelling. Is that the word I used? I wrote down a word. A foretaste of paradise itself. You know, prohibitions don't have to be ugly. They can lead to a true state of contentment. In fact, a true state of freedom. Shabbat and Pesach, they march together in tandem, shoulder to shoulder, one by one in Jewish life. Shabbos is the gateway for Pesach by understanding and accepting the concept of vitzivanu, obeying the commandments, fulfilling obligations. It's not a coincidence that the Torah reading of Tzav falls on the Shabbos before Pesach, Shabbat Hagadol. Freedom comes with purpose. Freedom comes with a price. Being commanded is both the price and reward of freedom. See you on the other side.
Shalom, everybody. Making a difference often takes just one moment and one person at a time. I am Orly Benny Davis, your show host on Israel News Talk Radios from Jerusalem with Love. You'll be hearing people talking about politics, religion, social issues, and making a better tomorrow. Join me, Orly Benny Davis, for God and Country. From Jerusalem with Love.
Wednesdays on Israel News Talk Radio.
And we're back. Andrea Simintov, pull up a chair on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. All right. So many little itty-bitty things to share. I was taking notes. I said I'll never get to it, but yeah, we will. All right. So came across a lovely article, very funny. I said, I'm not doing politics. I'm not doing that. We have so much to talk about Pesach, so much to talk about Shabbos. And yet here I am, presenting an article that came across my feed. I somehow erased the writer's name. She's Italian, an Italian-American woman who's a well-known chef, so well known, in fact, that I don't know her name. But the name of her article really grabbed me, and it was called Grief with a Side of Baked Ziti. And the kind of blurb says, after unexpectedly losing her mother, one writer uses a beloved meal to connect the past to the present, and negotiate the future. And it's just a lovely, lovely story about a woman who grew up in a house, and her mother always had this fabulous pasta sauce. It wasn't a bolognese. It was a nice pasta sauce. It was mommy's. It was one of the Italian sauces that takes 19 days to cook, and it's always on the stove and simmering. And she went to college, and she had boyfriends, and she went cross country. But wherever she went, she had a container of her mother's pasta sauce. And what I loved was, it was like in the days, the mother must have been very, didn't trust this newfangled plastic and would freeze it in rinsed out containers from takeout Chinese food. I just loved the story. But the story was as other culture as it was very, very Jewish, where she talked about continuing the tradition, and each jar of sauce that was in her freezer would dwindle and dwindle. And this was the most beautiful paragraph that I came across. One evening in the fall, 3 months after she left us, I defrosted it. As I served my dad and husband that warm California evening, I began to cry. It felt like she'd died all over again. Her sauce had been such a real reminder of her unending love and care. And now it was finally, truly gone. My friends, I was drawn to this article because it smelled of Pesach, the oleo of cultures that stimulate memories like nothing else. My dearest mother-in-law of blessed memory, Rachel Bas Leah, she used to make something. It was an Afghani stew called rema. You know what? I hope my Lebanese listener is still listening in, because maybe he, she, or could tell me what kind of stew they would eat for holidays. It was an Afghani stew, and I was totally hooked. I would try to make it at other times of the year, but guess what? It didn't work. On Erev Pesach, on Pesach Eve, that day, we would eat during the day because we weren't allowed to eat chametz. We couldn't eat other foods. So she would make an ash, a stew, that was rich with rice and dill and chicken wings and mung beans seasoned with cinnamon and cumin. I have to tell you, if heaven has a taste, it's a taste of ash. You know, perhaps it confused my own children in the years that followed, the years after I divorced. But the love and the food transcended the petty things like the dissolution of a marriage. Your houses today should smell of history, smell of tradition, smell of love. Because remember, these are the things that we take with us in the years to come. I was speaking with the engineer during the break, and it was very sweet. He said, where am I going? Where am I staying? It doesn't matter that I'm going to America for this break. The fact is, I'm going to be with my mother who is very old, and she's tiring. And my brother is working on a family tree, and my mother knows that I'm coming for a week of writing and recording and jotting down and gleaning and taking. And we're going for a week of Scrabble, and we're going for a week of Boggle, and we're going for a week of puzzle building together, and we're going for a week of laughter and hugging, and yes, indeed, food. Because if not for Pesach, why else would we be doing any of that? So I just really wanted to share that with you. And thanks for listening. Isn't that nice? Grief with a side of baked ziti. Okay. I was waxing emotional there for a minute. Got a grip? Yeah. Okay, Rashi, our beloved Rashi. The name of this week's Parsha is called Sav. It's an expression. I told you it's a command. It connotes urging. I have to digress. Waze, that wonderful Israeli invention that most people use to get from one place. It's a navigational device. It's invented in Israel. Anyway, Waze, it's really funny. They have all these different, I'm losing my English, settings. And you can set it to a voice you want. You could set it to the language you want. Well, one of the Waze settings, I kid you not, I don't know if it's available in the rest of the world, but here in Israel is an Israeli army commander. So they sit, I'll translate it to English, but they go, make a right turn, Sav. Make a left turn, Sav. At the traffic circle, go to the second exit, Sav. It's a command. Okay, so I'm supposed to be loftier than that, and I'm reading Sav and I'm thinking ways. Okay, so once one is commanded, what we're learning from the Torah is that once we're commanded to observe a particular mitzvah, we are required to exert additional measure to fulfill the obligation. It doesn't mean, it's like when we sit at the seder and go, count the pages, how much more? Ideally, the seder should end and we should be shocked. What? That's all? I'm so into it. I'm so involved. I'm so passionate. To do a mitzvah as though it's obligatory, as though it's a pain, it doesn't mean that we don't do it, but it's not fun to allow our evil inclination, our Yetzer Hara, to let us do the minimum. The sages maintain that one who fulfills what he is commanded to do, tzav, 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 is greater than the one who completes a mitzvah voluntarily. All right, in the few minutes left in this session, I must get to something because I know I'm going to forget it. Last line of the Seder, last page of the Seder. We sing, we stand around the table. Many of us dance and hold arms, and we know it's over. We've completed it for another year. We've connected to our roots. We're there, we're here, God. We're emancipated. We're so grateful. And we sing Hashana Haba'ah B'Yerushalayim. Next year, may we merit to be singing, dancing, and performing our Seder in Israel. Let's live there. Guess what, guys? It's not a song. It's not Moon River. It's not I don't know, the theme from Chorus Line. It's a tefillah. If you don't mean it, think about it. Be humble. You ate the bread of affliction, the bread of humility. If you're singing next year in Jerusalem, don't say it's just a song. Think about it. Let it affect you. Okay. Let me see. Where do I want to take you? New beginning, new direction. Yeah. So Rabbi Alexander Zusia Friedman in Wellsprings of Torah, I have referred to Wellsprings of Torah many times. Pick it up, try to get it. He records a commentary, but actually comes from a very unknown source, but I liked it. An ordinary priest was obligated to bring a meal offering only on the day of his induction into temple service. The high priest, however, had to bring one each day. What do we learn from this? Within a man on a higher spiritual level, every day must represent a new beginning, a new renewal of zeal for the task we're called to accomplish. Therefore, for a high priest, every day was a new dedication, such as the ordinary priest experienced only on the day of his induction to office. What does that say to you? What does that say to me? Oh my gosh, we could do it like obligation. We could grit our teeth. We could say, okay, I got it. I'll be there. Or we could really, really mean it. All right, let's see what I want to go. Oh yeah, this is what we'll finish with. Here we go. Judaism, everybody, our service to God, we don't see it as being purely voluntary. You know what? There are so many obligations, so many commandments, so many say, not for me, I'm bowing out. But you know what? In this command and our society, we have such opportunities. The entire thrust allows us to be individuals, to be special. There is a mountain that is hanging over our head, and we are witnessing so many facets of our lives. Remember, Jewish continuity, Jewish celebration, actually questioning why we are here. We're going to talk more about this when I come back, and I'm going to bring you down a very special lesson from Rav Aviner. My name is Andrea Simintov. See you on the other side.
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
This is Shai Bentako, and each week I'll be webcasting to you from Judea, origin of the word Jew, a people besieged and beleaguered in every generation. Nazi Germany's but a memory, but in its place the world invented the phantom Palestinians as this generation's internationally authorized Jew killers. Tune in for a different slant on life in Israel, Phantom Nation, every Monday.
Hi, I'm Rabbi David Aaron. The soul basics are the most profound, the most essential, and yet often the most neglected in our education. Join me for Soul Talk on Israel's News Talk Radio and discover the secrets to love, spiritual growth, and personal power.
And we're back. Andrea Simintov, pull up a chair on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I am so grateful. I am so grateful to be able to spend this morning with you. This morning, Erev Pesach, and growing together, learning together. In this last segment of the pre-Pesach show, very funny, as I was during the break, I was kind of flipping through this book I received. I don't know, my husband came home, he threw it out and he says, look what we got. It's called the Jewish Community Pesach Seder Companion. And you know, I feel guilty. I get so much stuff, so many books, so many brochures, so many written notes, divrei Torah that people are coming out with. Who's got the patience? Who's got the time? And I wasn't even looking. It is beautiful. It is rich. Please God, I'm going to read it on the plane. It will indeed, hopefully, enrich my Seder. So not only is it filled with recipes, but it's put out by the OU, that's the Orthodox Union. Yeah, here in conjunction with the municipality. There's a message inside from our mayor, who, between you and me, I don't really think speaks English, but he wrote very nicely. Anyway, filled with stories, including pages and pages of both pictures and also, here's one column. It's called, What Does Yerushalayim Mean to You? What does Jerusalem mean to you? And I'm just reading pages and pages of people's thoughts of what it means to live in Jerusalem. And again, I mentioned the Hashana Haba B'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem, and what it really means. And I'm reminded, so many people, one of the things I'm actually doing when I go to America, please God, is I'm going to be meeting with 2 or 3 families that are kind of on the fence. They're ready to make Aliyah. They're so frightened. They're so nervous. They're going to do it. And I'm going to meet with them and to discuss with them how I and my husband, how we can personally help them and kind of be their guides and mishpacha, their families, when they get here. But I was thinking, I came across just a note in this, and it reminded me, I have all these written notes for you, but instead I'm, looking at this. When we left Egypt, it's the way we read the Haggadah. We left Egypt, so we got up, we packed, and we left. Seems so simple when you read it, but you know what? Only 20% left. I was under the impression that the 20% who left were the 20% who really wanted to go. I was wrong. In a moment, I'll tell you about that, how wrong I was and how shocked I became to hear Rabbi Aviner and Rav Kook's take on it. But I want to get back to the splitting of the Red Sea. By the way, one of my daughters, actually, the entire entrance of her house, she wraps in blue paper, in like blue sort of like tablecloths, disposable tablecloths, and they pin on it fish and starfishes, and the kids draw like ocean life, and they walk through to the Seder. They walk down the hallway, which has replicated the sea of reeds that they split and Bnei Israel walked through. I just think that's so cute and so kid-centric. Anyway, cute, kid-centric. We remember the first one in the water, the children of Israel, the big complainers, and they were big complainers, and they were frightened, and they were slaves. And they get there, and what do they see? They're faced by the ocean. They're faced by the water. And they say to Moshe, this is what, there weren't enough graves in Egypt. Now you're here to drown us? And one young man named Nachshon ben Aminadav broke through the crowd, and he walked into the water. And most of these people, if not all of these people, didn't know how to swim. And he began to walk into the water. He was the physical demonstration, the embodiment of faith. And he walked in and he walked in. And they screamed because he was walking to his own death and he was going to drown. And still the water stayed and stayed and stayed. And he walked in, and suddenly, as it hit his nostrils, the seas parted. He physicalized his faith. He knew God. God would be true to his words, and the waters parted, even as it looked hopeless. Get on the plane. Call Nefesh B'Nefesh. Call the Jewish Agency. The waters will part. Will it be easy? 40 years in the desert, it wasn't easy. But it is all good, and it is what we were commanded from heaven. Okay. The entire thrust of the Torah lies in that word sav, as I told you. It's a commandment. It's an order. The values of Torah life, it comes with an instruction manual. We don't have to make it up. Just as the wonderful gadgets of technology in our lives require adherence to the manual that accompanies each device in order for Torah to operate properly, effectively. The Torah, in the realm of the spiritual, requires adherence to those instructions. I'm not digressing. Did you ever bring home an IKEA bureau and say, I don't have to look at the instructions. I'm very good with my hand. You know what? You have a lot of formica laying on the floor when you're done and screws that don't fit. It's not for nothing that any and all of these blessings that were composed by the rabbis to be recited before we perform a mitzvah contains that word, as I said, vitzivanu. He commanded us. Because we usually translate it in terms of being a good deed, literally meaning something which has been commanded. We say, well, I'm going to give tzedakah today because it's a good deed. No, it's an obligation. Tzedakah contains the word tzedek, not good boy, but correct, obligated, the right thing to do. It is this recognition, that was English there, it was this recognition of being commanded, following the instruction manual, the blueprint of Torah, in a committed way, a punctilious fashion. I love that word. This defines Judaism throughout the ages. We can sit at the Pesach table because our table is the same table that our ancestors sat at, that our great-grandparents, whether they were sitting in our great-great-great-great-grandparents, whether they were in Lodz, Vilna, Slobodka, Tehran, Morocco, South Africa, Alaska, Russia, Spain. The table is the same. The passion is the same. The fruits, the discussion, and the devotion to children is the same. The fault line in Jewish life remains, as it always has been, by acceptance or indeed rejection of the concept of vitzivano. When I speak, who was it? Somebody said, well, we always do a seder at my house, but I also have out some rye bread in case somebody doesn't like matzah. Nobody likes matzah. Well, that's not true. I'm going to get nasty letters. A lot of people like matzah, but you're not sitting and saying, gee, I really want a big corned beef on matzah. It's got to be rye. I'm sorry. I lost my place thinking about corned beef on matzah. In today's world, there are a lot of people who want to improve on the Torah. You know what? What was it I heard about the orange on the seder plate? The people who eat this orange. It's something, an allusion to feminism. It's not what it's about. There's a place, if you want to have a discussion of women's role in Judaism, women's role in the workplace, women's role in the boardroom, that's fine. Leave it out of the seder. There, I said it. Jewish history teaches us that tinkering with the concept is not the way it goes. It's only that old instructional manual that still stands and preserves us after everything else, my friends, has passed from the scene. You know what? Chametz. There's another kind of chametz. I alluded to it last week, but I'm telling you now. It's the chametz that's within ourselves. That's the greatest and most dangerous chametz in human life. Yeast is potent, but spiritual chametz is equally powerful. Physical chametz causes fermentation in dough, makes it unusable for consumption on Pesach. Worse is spiritual chametz, because you know what? It paralyzes our souls. The fermentation causes our entire society unfit to celebrate Israel's future redemption. Which brings me now, boys and girls, to why are we here? Were we so special? Did only the good ones get out of Egypt? I was shocked to learn from Rabbi Avi Ner that there is no list, no rationale for why those of us who were plucked out of bondage were chosen. It wasn't because we were the good ones. It wasn't because our ancestors were the ones that were the most spiritual. You know what? There was no amalgam. There was no frat rush. There was no endurance test. God's reason is always God's reason. As we sit at the Seder table, some of us engrossed, some of us bored, waiting to sing Hashana Hababa Yerushalayim. It's important to realize that for some existential reason, for some micro brilliant decision in God's thinking, you were chosen to be alive at this time, chosen to witness the outstanding miracles of his blessings, when history would have predetermined and ensured our annihilation. You have a seat at the table. It might behoove us this year to quake, shake in humility, question what we did and will continue to do to have a seat at the loftiest table on the planet. The four sons, or the brilliant, simple, mentally challenged, disconnected, or evil, are there. Please ask why me and say thank you. Hashana Haba'ah B'Yerushalayim. Amen.
Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. Just click the orange button at the top of the IsraelNewsTalkRadio.home page, log in as yourself or an anonymous guest, and join in on the fun. You'll meet other listeners from all over the world who listen to Israel News Talk Radio, and you can make new friends. Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. It's the closest you can get to being in the studio with us.
We love listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Where can you get the inside news on Israel? At Israel News Talk Radio, we're dedicated to sharing Israel's inside story with the world by providing our listeners with news on Israeli politics, current affairs, and Israeli Jewish culture. The Israel News Talk Radio homepage also provides you, the listener, with useful information at your fingertips, with scrolling news headlines, weather, currency exchange, Shabbat candlelighting times, and so much more. Our radio programming is always accessible and on demand. We operate absolutely free of charge for everyone, everywhere. If you love what we do, partner with us now by becoming an Israel News Talk Radio supporter. With your support, you'll be inscribed on our Israel News Talk Radio Wall of Fame. There's nothing like us in the world. Be part of something great. Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.